Welcome to Sound and Vision, conversations with contemporary artists and musicians about the creative process. Here's the host of Sound and Vision, Brian Alfred.
Sound and Vision is proudly sponsored by Golden Artist Colors. Golden makes the best acrylic paint. They make Williamsburg oil colors and core watercolors and a bunch of mediums and other paint supplies that are the best quality you can get. You can find Golden in your local art store, or you can find out more information about them and their employee-owned company at goldenpaints.com. Sound and Vision is also sponsored by Fulcrum Coffee. Since Fulcrum has started me on their subscription coffee program, I've been trying new coffee each week, and there hasn't been a dud so far. Really great coffee with distinct differences in each roast. It's some of the best coffee I've had. And trust me, I've had a lot. The next time you're looking for coffee, check out Seattle-based Fulcrum Coffee Roasters. You can find out more and get their coffee at fulcrumcoffee.com. Sound and Vision listeners get a 20% discount on their order with the code ALFREDSTUDIO when purchasing their coffee. Kathryn MacNaughton was born in 1985 in Toronto, Canada, and lives and works in Lisbon, Portugal. She graduated from the Ontario College of Art and Design in 2007. Her solo exhibitions include Heatwave at Beers London and Intervals in Beers London, Fixed State and Sprang at Bologna Gallery in Toronto, Blue Note at the Huntclub Gallery in Toronto. Group exhibitions include Organized Chaos at Magma Gallery in Bologna, Italy, Pour at Joshua Liner Gallery in New York, Your Favorite Artist's Favorite Artist 2 at Joshua Liner Gallery in New York, Dualities, A Bridge Between Two Worlds at Bologna Gallery in Toronto, Smash at the Gardiner Museum in Toronto, and The One That Got Away at Artscape Youngplace in Toronto. Her residencies include the Pada Studios in Lisbon, and her work has been featured in publications such as Elle magazine, District W magazine, and the Coveteur. I spoke with Kathryn about her roots in Toronto, living in Portugal, doing Steinbeck book covers, bartending, electronic music, and much more. Here's our conversation. You know where a good place to start would be? Lisbon.
Yes. Yeah, Lisbon.
So when did you? So you just moved there?
Yeah, I moved there 2.5 months. May 14th, 2.5 months ago.
Oh, that's not bad. It's not like brand spanking new.
No, but it feels like it because everything kind of came together. Maybe July 1st. It took a really long time to get things organized.
God, moving in this environment, was it tricky?
Yes, very, very tricky. Like,
can't imagine. That's not a small move.
No,
or like a move like, you know, in another neighborhood. That's like full on.
And the visa took so long to get, and it didn't actually come until I got here. It came a few weeks ago. I had to ship my passport back. I don't know if I should be. No, they told me at the embassy this is what you should do because
we'll garble that off the.
No, the embassy told me to do this. It wasn't. The Portuguese embassy was like they were so backed up because of the pandemic, and it just took forever. But so things are starting to move now, and it's great. It's very complicated, and they're very slow here.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, now too, like everything's slow because everyone's understaffed.
Exactly.
And just everything got delayed. It's almost like last year when everyone was sitting inside for a few months.
Yeah.
It got really quiet, and it was almost like a giant boat that went by, and it was just like quietly went by, and then like, you know, a year later the waves just start crashing. Like all the consequences of that.
Oh yeah.
Are now starting to really, you know, swell up.
Yeah. I got lucky though. I was almost not going to go at last minute. Everything just fell into place so perfectly in the end, and so happy I'm here. So happy.
You know, I was recently looking into maybe taking a trip to Lisbon just to go there. And there were some places that looked so nice, but it just seemed with like all the stuff that's going on right now that it was just not the best time to travel to Europe because who knows what the hell's going to happen.
I know. It's hard to say. Like, the numbers here aren't great, but they're plateauing a bit. And I think it's because a lot of people are getting vaccinated. I actually it's nuts. I got my second vaccine here, which I thought would never happen, my second shot, last Saturday. And I thought that was going to take forever. I know people here that are expats that have been living here for 5 years. I don't know why I got the call, but a lot of people now are getting vaccinated and the numbers are going down. And I don't know, you hope. Who knows though, right?
Just in time for the booster.
Yeah.
You might have to get the third version. Up soon.
I know.
Is what it is.
Yeah.
At least you're clear now,
Yeah, for now.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I know it's so hard, right? To plan. Planning is different now. I think we took so much for granted because, anything could happen at any time. But it seemed like as far as planning is concerned and travel, it was kind of okay there for a couple decades.
I haven't seen my parents in 2 years. They live in BC, and I was going to see them at Christmas, and that didn't turn it because the numbers were really bad around Christmas, and then I didn't want to take the risk. And then
wait, where were you though? Were you in Toronto?
I was in Toronto, but it was just they were they were saying don't fly, and then I was just I will never forgive myself if I'm the reason why my parents get COVID.
Oh, that was the thing. We didn't see our parents. Yeah, we couldn't. You can't risk it. You know?
So now they're trying to come to Portugal, and we're running into the same problem again. Same thing with a few of my friends that want to come in September. They got a call from them yesterday, and they were like, well, now Ontario is saying don't fly to Portugal. It's on the red zone. And I'm like, well, that's what they're saying now, but who knows what they're going to say in September. You kind of just have to take, not the risk, but book the flight and hopefully, I don't know. Actually, I don't know.
It's tough. I mean, if you're being really cautious, you could never go anywhere again.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's all kind of mitigating the risks and all. It's crazy,
Yeah.
Let's hope that things smooth out.
I know.
But it's exciting you're there. I mean, that seems like such a great place.
It's wonderful. And it's really the most beautiful city. I feel like I've been wanting to move here for years. I just get that, when you're just in a place that you're just this is me. It felt always when I came here, it felt like home. It felt like it felt right to me. And so I finally did it. And it's better than I even expected.
What brought you there to begin with?
I have a really
Vacation?
I have a close friend who lives here with her husband.
Okay.
And they have been here for 6 years. He's Portuguese. And
that explains it.
Yeah. And I've come to visit them. I've had other friends here. And then I did a residency here two years ago, right before the pandemic. So I've come almost every year for the last 5 or 6 years. Never gets old.
It looks pretty nice, and I have a couple friends who are from there who swear by it.
Yeah, the food, the people. I mean, there's a really great little art scene too, and it's prospering, and I don't know, it's great.
All right, well, so that's where you are now. Mm-hmm. We got to go way back and sort of connect the dots here.
Okay.
But so Toronto is where you were before.
Yeah.
And that's where you grew up.
Yes.
You were always there.
I was always there.
And I believe you would pronounce it Toronto.
Yes. Also why I moved, because I was like, this has got to change. I can't die here.
That was the straw that broke the camel's back?
Yeah. Yes, I was born and raised in Toronto. Yeah.
How'd that happen? What are mom and dad doing in Toronto?
They're from Toronto too.
They're lifers too. Holy! How many generations are we talking? Is your name Scottish?
And Scottish.
Ethnically, yeah.
Yes.
So there we go. At one point, it was in Scotland.
Yeah, and Nova Scotia.
You migrated closer to your roots, a little further south, but
yeah. Always from my great grandmother was. Oh, wait. Windsor too, near Detroit.
Okay.
I do remember some aunts and uncles. I don't know. I don't know my heritage or my lineage that well. But, anyways, yeah. So
let's just say deep Canadian.
Deep Canadian.
Were your parents creative though? Were they? What did they do?
Or
what do they do? I should say.
My dad is an interior architect, or was. He's retired. They're both retired. Both retired now.
Yeah.
And my mom was an accountant. So
you've got the connection. That's all you need.
Yeah.
You got the creativity side on one side and the business acumen on the other.
I didn't get any of my mother's.
No, it didn't come. No trickle down theory. No.
No, horrible at math. Horrible.
Well, you got your mom. You just have her do the bills.
Yeah.
No.
She did.
Yeah.
She did my accounting all the time growing up.
See? It worked out. It didn't need to trickle down. You could just keep it up there and mom, and then, she can help you out.
Yeah. My dad was an interior architect, so I guess it's from him. I have a brother as well. And he was always creative. My grandmother, too, was a painter. Not more of a hobby, but I do remember growing up and her paintings were everywhere.
A Niagara Falls painter? Did she paint the falls?
No, but she did go into the wilderness a lot, and she did paint like group of 7 paintings and nature, nice. A lot of nature, oil paintings. Yeah.
Some plein air. Mm-hmm. That's cool. So it came, yeah. And when you say your dad was an interior architect, do you mean like an architect who only designs like an interior designer?
Well, he doesn't do he didn't focus more on the lighting and fixtures and all that. So that's why it's hard to say. I mean, this is what I think, because interior designer can really mean, furniture
picking
as well.
Out the sofa.
Yeah. And
right.
he did more of the fixtures.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
Structural interior design.
Yes. But he also drew too. He painted and drew. He does sculpture now. It's really nice. Yeah, he has.
What's he doing? Carving?
No, he does ceramics.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, he has like a little ceramic studio near his place in BC.
That kind of sounds blissful.
Yeah.
Retired doing ceramics.
Yeah. It's really cute. He sends me photos all the time of his
That's
new
cool.
creations. Yeah.
So he must be proud of you dedicating your life to this craziness.
Yeah.
Of art.
Yeah. They're super happy about it.
That's great. Now, was the sort of the art school or art classes in school in Toronto, was it a good environment? Was it kind of pro creativity? Did you have good teachers?
Yes.
Or did you have to do it on your own?
I mean, in high school, I do remember it was really the only thing I was good at. And I think I always knew that was something creative was like the road for me. And even as a kid too, like my parents always put me in, craft arts. I was always taking after school art programs and all that. So, and then I went to Ontario College of Art and Design in Toronto.
Which I don't know much about. How was it? Is it a big school?
It's really big, yeah. It's pretty big. I mean, there's a design area and then there's the fine art area. And I actually majored in illustration. I went into it in my foundation year really not knowing what I was going to do. And I thought maybe environmental design. And the only reason why I did illustration as well is because I assumed becoming a painter was just not feasible.
Right. It was the employability of a major like that.
Yeah.
Or in illustration I can get a gig somewhere.
Like commercial work, and also for my parents too. I think that's what they were steering me towards. So I ended up I would just remember a teacher in foundation year saw some of my drawings and he just said to me, he's like, oh, you have work similar to, which is strange, but David Hockney, you should do it. You should go into illustration. So I just took it.
Sure.
I was like, okay, sure.
Isn't it funny when you're younger like that? You're like, okay, I'll do that.
I was 17. It's so crazy. Like first year university, it's 17. So I did illustration. I mean, I took fine fine art elective classes. So I took printmaking and drawing on the side. But I mean, the illustration program at OCAD was pretty phenomenal. I mean, I think it was known in the whole school as one of the best courses. So, and our teachers were great. I mean, I wonder what it would have been like if I took fine art. I do remember taking some of the classes though, and it was very loose. And I did love the structure of illustration, and they were pretty hardcore. You would get in a lot of you couldn't miss any classes. There was always assignments, deadlines, presentations, and they were pretty strict.
Rigorous.
Yeah.
As opposed to the art classes were like, hey, you showed up today. Nice.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
And just everything it felt like an A+ for everything. It's so subjective. Like it felt like that when I was in the first few courses, but.
Right.
So yeah, I graduated from OCAD in illustration.
Wait, with the illustration degree?
Yeah.
So you didn't get converted halfway through?
No,
like a lot of people start off with the I'll make money with this major, and then they get smitten by, the fine arts, and then like, okay, well.
That took like 10 years to get there.
It was a slow burn?
Yeah. No, I was an illustrator for, I think, 8 years. Well, actually, I graduated. I went to London for a year or 8 months to try, I don't know, it was graduated. I wanted to live in the UK for a minute.
Sure.
It was way too tough, and I was dirt poor. I couldn't afford anything. It was a struggle. And then I moved.
Not a cheap city.
No. And also when you're young, and I mean, I was trying to do illustration there and get hired as a freelancer. It wasn't working, and I ended up working at Selfridges in retail, and I was making like £5 an hour. My rent was insane, and
yeah. Not what you were imagining.
No, not at all. So I left. I came back, and then I was in a panic, and I applied for a job as an art director. So then I was an art director in an ad agency for a few years. And then I left, and then I tried the freelancing full time. Then I was hired as a designer at a graphic design agency, and then stopped that and was full-time illustration. And I got some gigs here and there, like really great ones. I did, I redid the covers for John Steinbeck, like 6 of them.
Nice. Yeah.
For Penguin, and yeah, I did some great book covers, but it was like feast or famine. Like good work would come, and then it would be like a year of nothing.
Not that structure that you were yearning for.
No, so I kept on going back and forth through, graphic design jobs and illustration. And then my friend opened a collective studio space, and I became a part of it and was working out of there as an illustrator, but she had a basement, and I started painting in the basement. And I just started creating work down there and having my own shows in the space. And that's how I really started. And then, illustration started to slowly move out, and painting was the prime career.
That's how it always starts. You go hang out with your friends. They introduce you to a little something in the basement.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, your structure is out the window, and you're an artist.
I mean, I think I just needed the space too. Like,
yeah.
Once I saw that space, and then I knew what I could do, it gave me an opportunity.
It's interesting. I mean, it sounds like, not to presume, but you didn't have much of a fine art education at all, really.
No.
So, but it sounds like you had a real long education in design and illustration and technique and, process linked to, kind of probably like a concept that was, client driven and all that. So when you pick up the canvas and the paintbrushes, I mean, what was it like in the beginning? Were you, did you jump right into something, or did you have to work through some kinks in there, or how was the transition?
I mean, I think that my illustration work was based on collage, and it had an abstract kind of expressionist feel to it. It felt very raw. Like I'd scan lots of digital images into the computer and then mess around with it. And so when I started working on canvas and physically, like it kind of had the same feel, just more intuitive. So it was I guess more expressive and freeing for sure. But back then it had a more of a Robert Rauschenberg kind of feel to it. Yeah.
Well, there's two ways it could go. Making that jump could be either daunting and like, well, when there's no rules, you know what I mean? How do I begin? The blank canvas of like, well, what the hell? Which I think ultimately is one of the hardest parts of being an artist. It's like that blank canvas. Like, what do I do? Yeah. Because you can figure out, for the most part, a technique or how to make the work, but it's really about like, well, what do I do?
No, definitely. And I think it was just a matter of just throwing paint on canvas and messing around and then peeling stuff off and putting things. I mean, it's kind of similar to what I do now in a weird way, but I mean, obviously a lot more cleaner now, but I do kind of still take the same approach. And it was the same thing kind of with illustration as well. It was kind of scanning textures into the computer and then masking it out, seeing what I like, composing it. I mean, it's very similar now that I think about it.
And those techniques.
And screen printing was always a huge thing growing up for me, in university and afterwards in illustration. And I think I still love that quality of a screen, like flat shape graphic, and I use the squeegee a lot still, and I was doing that as well, like at the very beginning.
And process, which seems such a part of the work. Kind of like segmented process that is, and the image is almost comprised of these different processes that are almost like different ways of making merged, kind of slamming together, right?
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like that's kind of an intuitive way for you to work.
Yeah.
Now, if you're into it, are your music tastes aligned to this kind of working or this sensibility?
Yes. I mean, I love everything. In terms of music, it's hard. I mean, depending on the year.
I'm there with you.
I mean, I love everything. I really, in university, I loved, rock, like the Yeah-Yeah-Yeahs and LCD Sound System and all that. And then I also love like electronic music and house. And I have friends that are DJs or make music, like ambient music and experiment. And it's fun to listen to them create their work, because I do find when I'm listening to it, they show me a recording, I'm like visualizing cut and paste. Like you can kind of hear the samples and like all the little bits and now like collaging it together and I can just visualize it. It's kind of nice. But music definitely is a big part. These days though, I listen to music when I'm doing my washes at the beginning, or if I feel a little bit stuck. But a lot of podcasts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm
take
really
your mind into that zone.
Or
right?
Silence sometimes. I think also the pandemic. It was strange with the pandemic. I got into this like groove of listening to CBC News a lot just because of the updates. And then it went away, the updates, but it became a thing that I just did in the morning, turn on CBC and then just never turned it off. And I just like the idea that I could hear someone speaking live, even though I didn't actually listen to it. I just wanted to hear voices that were...
I feel connected, right?
Yeah. It's weird. I
I can totally relate to that.
Gets intense for me, and I get too internal and like emotional, and sometimes I just need a voice speaking in the background.
Yeah. I totally get that. After 9/11, I went into that.
Yeah.
Where it was 24-hour news. I just had to feel like, even if I wasn't listening to it all the time, feel connected, like what's happening, what's going on. And I think it's some sort of like coping mechanism to where you feel like, well, I got to be informed, because it's so new. I mean, back then that was like a huge event, and it was like,
sure, yeah.
Didn't know what was going to happen next, and I just went on a binge of like news all the time for like a couple years. It was gruesome. I mean, it's just like weighed on me.
Oh, I know.
When I passed that, I remember like to wean myself off, what I would do is put on baseball games, because it was live and it was like there was voices, but it wasn't so depressing.
Yeah.
Transition back into music, which took a little bit, I think.
No, I totally agree. Thankfully, though, I'm not doing it here. I haven't been in the studio for very long, and we'll see what actually ends up happening. The problem actually with my studio here is that it's quite large. It has a warehouse kind of feel to it. It's industrial.
Sounds like an awful problem. Everyone listening is like, come on.
It's incredible, but I can't. I'm not complaining, but I either need like giant speakers or everything in my headphones.
Yeah.
So right now I'm only listening to everything in my headphones, which means I'm listening to podcasts more. Usually I like to listen to music on speakers, not in my headphones.
I hear you. Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, because right now too, being here, like I'm not listening to CBC News anymore. That's not happening. Just podcasts. Yeah.
Maybe you'll just convert to death metal.
Yeah.
That sounds very Lisbon. Yeah. Just rent giant PA speakers and just blow it out in the studio. So it's pretty big.
It is. It's they say it's 143 meters square, but I don't think it is.
American.
I know.
Sorry.
So
I know it's annoying. I can't do it.
I
don't know what feet. I don't know what that is in feet.
I think that's 11. No, it's more than that. I had it calculated at one point. Now I forget.
It's like 2,000 square feet.
Yeah, but it's not. I think it's probably 14. 14. Yeah.
Big enough, that's for sure.
It's more that the ceilings are really like
it's a little too big.
Just tall.
Yeah.
like really tall.
I did a residency once where I had a gigantic studio. Mm-hmm. I mean, huge. And the garage door opened up to it. And that was only like a quarter of the size of the studio. So this thing was monster. And I didn't know what to do.
I know.
I worked in one little corner. It was so pathetic looking. I mean, I had work. I hung work. But I would just make the work in one little corner. I didn't like it. It was too big.
I know. And I mean, this size is okay. I think it will be fine once I have more work, being or in progress, so I think it will all be okay. But there were a few studios I looked at here that were so ginormous, and the price was nothing. I think it was almost cheaper.
Again, no one wants to.
I mean, there was mold everywhere. There was mold
totally
everywhere. It needed a lot of work.
Yes, there were people sleeping in it, and I get it.
It was unbelievable. But I told the guy, I was like, honestly, I think I need to share this with someone. Like, this is scary for me. I don't know what I would do with all the space. Like, this is too much.
I think sometimes it's intimidating to have too much space because I gotta, you get that horror vacui where you feel like you have to fill it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or you feel like shame or something.
I know.
That's how I felt when I had that big one. I just started hanging older work up, in a residency. It was weird, but So, I mean, are you full on working yet? Or are you still kind of getting in the swing of it?
I mean, I'm painting. I ordered my I planned everything out. I ordered my stretchers. I got my canvas and ordered my paint and stuff. Actually,
is that from new places, or are you going with the old tried and true?
Well, I ordered from a company when I was here last time, and I love them.
Okay.
And
that's right. You were there. Never mind.
It was called Elle. It's in Belgium though, because the art supply situation here isn't great.
Isn't that weird when you go somewhere when you get really used to your thing? Like I worked in the summer in Japan, and they just didn't have big stretchers.
Yeah.
Because it's Japan. Like no one's really working that huge. I mean, I'm sure you could go somewhere, but in a normal art store, I asked them for like these big stretcher bars, and they were just like, "No, we don't have that." No,
they don't. I don't even think. Yeah, the stretchers here, it almost doesn't exist. Like I've asked a few gallery owners about it too, and they said to me they're like you should just order from Artel. Like most artists here order from there.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful. They're the ones with the metal on the inside.
Ah, nice.
Mm-hmm.
They're Belgian.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything in Belgium.
I know. And I ended up ordering all my supplies from there too because they have golden, and nice. I do love golden, and it's hard to. The paint here is in tubes, and I need like jars. I think. For my work.
I mean, I know it's old hat, but golden paint is so good. There's nothing like it.
It's nothing, and it lasts forever. Like I find that the paint actually I can order like jars of it, and I will have it for months and months. It just Yeah,
it's and the thing. Not to turn this into a commercial, but the pigment's so good too. Other paints you have to like put on 3 layers or something. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I was lucky. I found that in Belgium as well.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to Toronto. So you got out, you started painting with that collective or in that building. Mm-hmm. And then how did that facilitate connecting to the quote unquote art world or something, like through the people you knew, or and when did you get the feeling of like, okay, I'm going to do this. Like I'm going to,
Yeah, so I was doing the painting on the side, still freelancing, selling like work here and there to friends and people that came. Like, so the collective or the studio space, it's called Huntclub Studio. It had a gallery in the front, a gallery like space that turned into like a pop-up shops, and people could rent it out. And then the back had all the desks, and then there was a basement. So I would just use the front space as a gallery, and then I would have a show, and lots of people would show up. And I think the second one, maybe more people showed up, and then word of mouth maybe got around, and there was a gallery in Toronto that's pretty well known called Bologna Gallery, and they've been around for 50 years. It's like more of a traditional gallery. It's really great, and they wanted to start showing my work, and it just unraveled from there, I guess. I don't know.
That's kind of a nice perk of a studio space, is that you could show the work in there.
Yeah.
To sort of get you out there. You know?
Yeah. And I did some group shows and kind of, I guess it was great. It was great. And then from there, I was still doing freelance work. And I also worked at a concert venue.
Nice.
Which was wonderful. So I was doing that as well.
Free shows.
Yeah, it was amazing.
What were you were just working?
Bartending.
Oh, nice.
And it was like one of the oldest, it's one of the oldest concert venues in Toronto. It's from 1919. It used to be a silent film.
Whoa.
Cinema, yeah.
Big or small?
Small. I mean, smallish.
Like what kind of bands are we talking? Who was your favorite?
I really, really loved Peter Hook and the light, or what's his band? I don't know, Joy Division and New Order. He played.
He was in New Order?
Yes. I think he was a guitarist. Oh no, they played all the hits. It was amazing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. And St. Vincent was really good.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I remember Hot Chip being really good.
That's that group that you like, the Chick, the Hot Chip, and like all the LCD.
Yeah. I mean, it was nice to listen to, and also they were old. I mean, not old, but they weren't current at that time when they played, and it was kind of maybe it was just more nostalgic for me. I really enjoyed it.
Right. No, that's cool.
Yeah. I mean,
that's a good gig.
Yeah.
I mean, you're at least in the creative field. You get to watch music.
Yeah. So I was still doing that, and I did that until I was like 30, 31. I was still, I mean, it was just nice too to get out of the studio and just go to a concert and,
be around humans.
And I also got paid for it. Yeah. I know, it's good.
And I guess you know your way around a bar and how to make drinks.
Yeah, it was very simple. It was like beers and vodka sodas.
Okay, nothing, no sidecars or like Manhattans or anything.
No, nothing fancy.
So, and I'm curious, since we're on the topic of music, what were some of the kinds of what were some of the electronic stuff that you were into? I mean, that's such a wide.
I know. I also
range.
love old rock. Like my parents, I have all my dad's old vinyl. And I love all his jazz music too, which I love. But yeah, electronic music, I was really into Nicholas Jar, and I love Dark Side, which is like an incredible
I don't know
album.
Nicholas Jar.
Really?
I mean, I've heard the name, but I don't know. What is it? Is it like house?
Go listen to Dark Side.
All right, I'm writing it down.
He just came out with a few new songs too.
What kind
year.
of?
It's minimal, like it's very...
I like that.
Yeah, it's more minimal electronic house kind of music. I mean, he has some pretty upbeat, older tracks, but Dark Side is a little bit more ambient-y-ish. And his voice, so great. And with the guitarist is Dave Harrington. Unbelievable.
Like a guitarist?
Yeah, it's a guitar and him. He plays,
programming.
Yeah, programming stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Best concert I've ever seen in Toronto.
Really?
Yeah, unbelievable.
Wow.
And they don't play anymore. Anyways,
that's cool.
Go listen to it. It's so good.
I wrote it down. As a Canadian, I know not from Canada, but were you a fan of Boards of Canada?
No.
Don't know them?
I do know them, but I wasn't a fan. I mean, I just wasn't into it. I know of them. I just never, maybe a little bit of it, but it didn't resonate with me, I don't think.
I thought some of that.
Are they great?
Oh, they're kind of seminal.
Maybe I should get into that
but
again.
Thinking of that kind of collage-based music, like Manitoba. Well, now that he's called Caribou, but he used to be called Manitoba.
Like one of my favorites.
Yeah, and that Stop Breaking My Heart record was just so good.
So good. I've seen him a bunch too.
Yeah, he's really good. And then he's got his side project, which is really good too. Speaking of minimal sort of beat stuff, and it's called something.
Wait, I think I know what you're talking about.
I'll remember, and then I always remember this after we stop rolling.
I know.
But yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
And Fortet, I would imagine you might.
Yep. Yeah. Loved.
Just did a music video for Fortet.
Really?
Yeah.
What, like, direct or?
Well, my friend and I did this animation based on like a band in Los Angeles during COVID.
Oh, wow.
And we worked with him and we did it for his song LA Trance.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
I'll send you a link after we're done.
Yeah. Very cool.
But he's great, isn't he?
He's so
will, not that you asked, but I will put on in the studio, he does those boiler room sets or like...
Oh, I think I've heard them, yeah.
Or he'll do one in his house where he just streams for an hour. And for me, that kind of pulsating, like slow evolving stuff is great to work to because you kind of get lost. It's not so in your face. It can kind of become like part of the fabric of your movements and stuff. It's nice.
Yeah. I forgot about those like boiler room.
Remember those?
Oh my God, yeah.
Where there was like a DJ and there was like 50 people just
behind
breathing on them and like dancing, grinding on the person.
They used to throw some of them in Toronto, like some of the parties I remember, and friends of mine used to go. Yeah.
Those are great. Anyone who likes that kind of music, just Google Boiler Room. Is that vintage now at this point? Is that like
I
old
think
time?
so. Yeah. I also think it's like made fun of now.
Sure. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. I don't think it's cool.
Well, the idea of those, picturing those, like, there was a great Tori Imoa one where there's like all these people just like bugging, like all over, and like seeing that like post-COVID is very like.
Oh yeah. Or the like, weird guy in the background who's just
spaced out or staring at a girl or something. Yeah, that's great. It's so entertaining.
I know it is.
And it can be distracting if you put those on YouTube while you're working in the studio.
Yeah. I used to put them on at work when I was like a designer, like at the while I was working
on one side of the screen, your boiler room, and then the other you're doing InDesign. That is not going to make you efficient at work.
No,
but it's fun.
No.
Now, do you ever work? Because I teach, and I have a lot of students who will paint, and they have their laptop and they're watching whatever, The Office or or videos or whatever. Can you do that? I can't do that.
No, I can't.
But I think the younger generation, not to sound too old, I think younger people can do it and it doesn't bother them.
I was watching something, it was a while ago, but I did have something on because it was I can't remember. But I do remember I had it on while I was painting in the studio. It was on my laptop.
Wheel of Fortune.
No, it was something specific. Like I had to watch it. Someone sent it to me. They're like, "Oh, you got to watch this episode of," I don't know. I put it on and I was painting, and then the next day when I looked at the painting, it just reminded me of the show.
Oh, weird.
like
it came out.
Yeah, like I could feel the show.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. It was weird.
That would be an interesting idea for a show, because there's a difference between working representationally and with abstraction, of course.
Yeah.
And like you could, like, imagine for a show during the working period of it. Say you work on it for like 9 months. You only watch horror movies in the studio. Like, I wonder if those paintings will be wrought with like tension and kind of dark.
Oh, I wonder. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But it's mediated, so it's interesting. It'd be like, because we're all affected by our life, and that's how our art becomes what it is, and to some extent, because it's kind of like part of the fabric of who we are.
Yeah.
So if you just like, like lose yourself in like inspiration in something, if that ends up coming out. I mean, obviously actors do it. They'll go like, bartend for a role about being a bartender, and then they just like live it. Like they literally live that life for like 3 months just to see what it's like.
Yeah. No, it would be interesting to do that. I don't know if I could. I also think with me, my work is pretty planned out beforehand. So I don't know how much of the show, if I'm like watching something while I'm painting, like how much it could change, maybe in the color scheme, but yeah.
Or the planning stages, maybe just when you're thinking of work or working out ideas for work, it would get manipulated by, your feelings or whatever. Yeah. But that's a good transition because, and to talking about sort of the formal aspects of the work is there sort of a collective, like let's say you have a show and you're working on a group of work, do they talk to each other? Do you purposefully sort of like make that a conversation, or is each piece a new adventure each time? I mean, I saw the work you had at Liner, like in New York, and that seemed very cohesive.
Yes.
And I've seen older work of yours or other work that seems like, a lot different.
Yeah. Yes. I think usually with the work, especially if I'm working towards a show, a work on 2 paintings first, and it will kind of dictate where the rest of the work's going to go. So I do keep it pretty cohesive, but I kind of allow myself a little bit of time to figure out what it's going to be. Like, I don't pre-plan everything before I touch the canvas. I usually I let it to intuitively come within the first piece or 2. And then,
but you're doing sketches on the computer, I assume.
Yes, so I do the wash first, apply this wash, and it kind of helps me understand where it will go from there. I kind of, it's almost like, intuitive, chaotic attacking or whatever the canvas, and then I resolve it by, seeing what I love about the wash and the colors that are coming out, and decide what I'm going to keep and what I'm going to mask out or block out. And then that informs me of what the composition will be. And then I do everything digitally at that point. So then I kind of mask it all out on the computer and figure that out. And usually that's when the collaging starts coming in, and I'm cutting and pasting a lot and trying to layer and then take things away and then put things back. It's very, it has the same element of making something abstract on the canvas, on the physical canvas, but I just do it on the computer, where I kind of have an idea and then I kind of scramble it all up and then do it again and then see the things that kind of creep in. And then I'll put that on I'll try to put that on the canvas, and then I rework stuff, and then I go back in and rework it, because it never really, the final like when I project it and get it on the canvas, sometimes it just doesn't translate the way I want it to once it's painted, and then I'll alter. I'll alter some things, or like I'm working on one right now actually that's like that, and I'm looking at it. I have to figure it out because it's weird. It's like when I see it on the computer, I'm like, oh, this is great. I don't know, something about it's wrong now that it's painted. I'm like, it feels flat or something.
Lost in translation, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Some things just don't. I do that with images, where certain ones, when I'm drawing them out, or if I'm just researching certain images and I think, oh, this is a good one, Mm-hmm. But then, like, if I draw it out, like the line drawing of it, and I project it onto a big canvas, and sometimes it just doesn't work at that scale, or it just, I'm like, oh, yeah, this isn't going to work.
I know.
Which is always better to get that before you start the painting.
Well, my problem is the colors. Like, it's always, the color is, I don't know, it just doesn't have the thing I want. Yeah, just the colors feel flat sometimes when I try to, color swatch right from the computer, which is probably, it's obvious that will happen. So then I have to go back in and rework. Yeah, it
seems like there's, even if you're sketching things out on the computer, at least for me it's like that too. There's a lot that needs to change in between notes, just like going from drawing to painting.
Oh yeah.
And you, over time, you start to instinctively know, like, okay, that's got to change, or that's going to be different when I actually, put paint to canvas. And I think that's just,
totally.
Just like any preparatory things or you could look at a digital drawing as its own piece and a drawing as its own piece, and they're all just different. And if you try to line them up, sometimes it depends on the artist, but for most people, if you try to line it up exactly, it's just like something dies in there, because it's just becoming like a copy,
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Something dies in the transition, and so there's always going to be reworking of something, even if it's just like the white.
Yeah, right.
It's always the white that's the problem for me.
But your process, aesthetics aside, there seems to be a Rauschenbergian sort of element to this moving and play, and doesn't seem like you've navigated away from that sort of collaging and that process. It's just a different look and feel.
Yeah, it's a lot cleaner. Back then I was ripping. I used to collect lots of vintage magazines, ripping them up and smearing them and on the canvas and all that. That doesn't happen
anymore. Not all that aggression. Throwing cans at it.
Yeah.
My I don't know if he listens to it. My old studio neighbor in graduate school was painting for a while with chains. He was dipping chains in paint, I think, and just banging the wall. But it was startling on my studio, because I wouldn't know when it was about to start, and all of a sudden this giant chain would start banging the walls. Pretty amazing. Kept me on my feet.
That's funny.
It's like, oh, there it goes again. It's like a neighbor who plays the drums and it just starts kicking in at any given time. You're like, oh, there they go again.
Yeah. I mean, I remember dipping cloths into paint, like big buckets of paint, just throwing the cloth at the canvas and seeing what happens. Yeah.
It feels good, though, when you do that sort of thing.
It does. It's kind of nice.
Kind of like empty. I think in life, if you're not doing that in your work, you just find another avenue to get that stuff out. But you got to have that release some way or another. Or you're just going to explode.
I do think, though, with the release part, like, that's why with the washes, like sometimes with the pouring of the paint and the washes, they get really aggressive and there's lots of layers and sometimes they're very, very heavy. But that is the part where I mean, that's where I get my aggression out, I find. And I can't, even if that always will go, it is slowly going away. I'm masking more and more. I still have to do it.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's hidden, I'm still going to do it.
Yeah, no, I get that out. I to an extent, I do that when I'm gessoing. I mean, it is like, you know, it's physical, it's movement, it's like, you know, it's sanding and all that stuff. I love doing that part of it. I can have someone else stretch the canvas for me at this point in my life because my hands, there's a lot of pain, you know, but I don't want anyone priming my canvases for me. That's me. Yeah. That's where I feel like, you know, it's like building the foundation of a house or something. Like, I want that feeling that I've, you know, prepared that surface.
I know. No, I get it. Yeah.
Now, it started as a joke, but it's almost becoming a segment. But brush talk. So, I imagine you have a lot of different brushes and techniques. I mean, you mentioned squeegee, right? With screen printing, you use a lot of different methods.
Squeegees and sponges for the washes for sure, but I use little rollers for the the flat.
Those are great.
Paint.
The foam rollers.
Yeah.
Those are good. That's like a secret. I don't know if people know that.
Is it?
I don't. Well, I'm sure some people do, but I think I've talked to people and I said, you know, and a lot of times with students, but the foam thing is kind of a secret for some people, because I have a lot of students who are and know some artists who gesso with a big fat brush, like, you know. And I was like, you know, if you use a foam brush, it goes on a lot smoother. You can spend like a quarter of your time sanding.
Oh, yeah.
And half the gesso isn't going into the air. You could just use a foam brush. It's so easy. And they have those, you know, those foam brushes, like the ones that they sell at Home Depot that are super smooth. Mm-hmm. But they have rollers like that.
Like a
regular paint roller, but instead of the big brushy roller, it's a foam roller. It's super thin. It's like the foam brushes.
Oh.
I figured that one out when I was doing a ginormous painting. I mean, a huge one. And I was like, this is going to be a real pain in the ass, the gesso. Yeah. And I saw it when I went to get the foam brushes. I saw this roller and I was like, jackpot.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's going to be possible to get that here.
Oh, yeah.
The hardware store is very limited as well.
Can you order from Home Depot? Or what do you have in Toronto? Do you have Home Depots?
Okay. Yes, we have Home Depot, yeah. I usually use that or hardware. There's a Home Hardware as well. It was great. It was right beside my studio in Toronto.
Why'd you leave?
No, I'm so happy. Never going back.
So are you near water?
I am, but I chose to live, I'm in near Grassa area, which is, it's up further up in the hillier part. But when I walk to the studio, you kind of get a little bit of the water on your walks, which is really nice. Yeah. And it's so close to go down. I take the ferry over. I mean, I've been going over to the Residency I was at a little bit because I'm still friends with the owners and I have friends over on the other side of the river. So I take the ferry. I was there on the weekend, take the ferry over. It's great.
I love the water and just being near the ocean. Although I feel like I will never buy a house or invest near water because I feel like it's just going under.
Well, with everything that's happening now, actually, like I had this conversation with my friend. He's from Barreiro, but Lisbon or Portugal, and we were talking about. It's like, what do you think will happen if we get the same kind of like torrential downpour that Germany got, or like do you think the system will be able to hold this up? And asking them the questions. And I'm so glad I didn't choose to live closer to the water, because I'm at the very top. I'm secure
Your
out here.
altitude is up, yeah.
Yeah, just in case something happens, because the weather has been a little strange, but
smart choice.
Yeah, I don't know. I would be too nervous to be in Alfama, which is right by the water. It's the oldest part of Lisbon.
Yeah.
It's not secure.
I mean, beautiful and probably amazing, as long as there's
gorgeous.
no, giant storms or whatever is coming because of our environment.
Yeah.
Not to be a downer.
Yeah.
Everything's going great.
It's great. It's great. Yeah.
I'm sure Canadians have a little bit more of that glacier melt in their consciousness than others.
Oh, yeah.
I would imagine the further north you go, the more, you hear about and worry about just all the melting.
Yeah, I mean, my parents right now are dealing with some scary stuff in BC right now. I mean, they have their bags ready to go at the door. Yeah, it's crazy.
I feel like it's just the way, anyways.
I know. We don't need to
that's why making art is so great. We can escape into our imagination and pretend.
Yeah.
Into the flow state. Do you get into the flow state? This is like a new phenomenon for me. I just figured this, or just sort of learned about flow state.
What's that?
When you're working in the studio for a while and you just kind of like forget reality and everything else washes away.
Yeah.
It's just kind of bliss.
Yes.
And it's particular to like artists or creative people. Like they can get lost in that world.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that the best?
Yeah. It's the best. It's the best. It happens all the time.
I know when you forget everything, you just, I feel like it's the most de-stressed I am in my life whenever
I mean, it gets to the point too where like your music's not even, or music podcast, nothing's playing, you're just in silence.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I'll forget that it's just silent and I'll just work for hours.
That's amazing. That's an amazing state when you get to that, you know?
Yeah.
Because I think too, now we're conditioned, I know I am, and I'm the first person to say this phone is terrible, like it's ruining our lives, and it's just like, I mean, we're never off the clock and we're constantly worried about picking it up, and our brain is like constantly going. There's never like downtime anymore. You're always on the clock, But yeah, that when you hit that sort of silence and you lose that feeling of needing to connect or needing to check or whatever, I feel like it's the ultimate de-stressing, and it's so rare now.
Oh, for sure. And the fact, like, I always think about the fact that, like, I'm hardly on my computer during the day. I mean, unless I'm, composing the paintings, that it does sometimes. Those are days, but when I'm just painting, like, all day long and not looking at my phone, not looking at my screens, I'm in the studio for 8, 9, 10 hours. It's so wonderful.
Yeah. Even if it's hard, right?
Like,
even if it's a tough day, it's still.
But I'm standing. Like, I'm standing and actively, like, doing something. It's just, and I'm engaged, It's so great.
Is that your sort of physical part of the studio, or do you do other like sports or exercise or stuff, or is that pretty much when you're like moving?
No, I do exercise. I do yoga and like some cardio stuff.
Don't you think it's important? I've been really value that. It was hard during the pandemic because for some people, I mean, here in Brooklyn, it's like, I was in like if I go in my hallway, there's a lot of people, so it's kind of like.
Could you go to the studio? Like, what did you do?
Well, I worked at home. Because we had family members who were super high risk, so we didn't want to screw that up. So I just made a little mini studio at home, worked on small stuff, which worked.
That's great. Yeah.
But it was an adjustment.
I mean, I work out in my studio. Like I bring my yoga mat there and I just like work out in a place, and then I do it at the end of the day. So then when it's almost like I just. Like going to the gym.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you can.
And then I'll go home and I'll shower.
It's a big studio. You have the space for it.
I mean, I used to do it in my old studio too. Like, I would just do it at the end of the day. And then, actually, my old studio had a shower, so I could shower there. It was great.
It's funny, our studio building I'm in has a shower too, but I'm a little...
I know, so I was nervous about it for years. And then 6 months before I moved out, I thought, maybe I should try this. And I did, and I was like, I'm so mad I didn't do this before. It's great. I can work out midday.
Yeah. And that's advantageous. You could squeeze it in anytime. Yeah, I feel like it's important to, like, you know, I don't know. You feel like you have more energy in the studio if you're actually, you know, getting some energy in another way. Yeah.
I also think it's nice to have this little break for my mind to kind of, I don't know, it's why I did like doing it midday, because it broke up my day in this really nice way. Like, I would be very focused, and then I would work out, and I would be clear-headed again. It was like a reset. And then the afternoon I would work again, and I don't get that as much, but still an end of day is great.
Well, it's kind of like the equivalent of throwing the paint at the canvas in a way. You can get that out, you know. It's a little cathartic, or you can exhale when you do that.
But no other sports really, unfortunately.
No rugby?
No.
Right. So, a weird segue. We mentioned something earlier, and I thought of it, is when you're like talking about all these feelings and, you know, tender, whatever, when you sort of make your work and you hang a show, are you wanting the viewer to get a particular feeling from the work? Or are you open for them exploring it in any way? Or are you trying to create a sort of layering and tension in the image, or relaxation? Or, I mean, they are pretty busy. They're not sort of like, they're not the minimal electronic songs. They're a little more like drum and bass or something. I mean, you got a lot going on. Like, they feel faster and they feel like, you know, dynamic. So I'm wondering if, like, when you make that work, if that's an image that you're trying to convey that feeling or get that sort of relationship with the viewer, or if it's just that's your relationship to the image and the viewer brings whatever they bring to it. I
mean, I think about it for myself really, but I think for me, with that idea of I know they are sometimes very busy. There's something though, there's like a pulsating feeling to it that I like. It does something to my eyes that I like the feeling of it. And I can't really explain it. So when I get that kind of pulsating feeling through the lines of the colors and the shape, like the way the image is composed with the wash underneath. If I get that feeling, this humming, it's like a humming or a pulsating feeling. Yeah.
You know,
then I'm like, oh, I love this. This is great.
Yeah. It reminds me of, I have one of those things called a Theragun, which is kind of like a little massage gun thing. And it vibrates really quickly and intensely. Yeah. But and you put it on your muscles and it's like a massage thing. But it's a dynamic and fast and loud and really like strong. But it's very relaxing at the same time. And you kind of like, you know, you loosen up in it because of it. It's not like it makes you more tense. It's like an intensity that relaxes you in a way. So that's kind of an interesting, because you feel some sort of comfort in that fast pulsating rhythm of the painting.
Yeah.
See, you didn't sign up for a talk about massage guns in relation to your paintings, but that's where this crazy train goes.
I totally see what you're saying, though. No, it makes complete sense.
Well, do you know sorry, again, with music, do you know the musician Square Pusher?
No.
He has a song called Port Rhombus, and it's really fast. Like, there's a very fast beat in it, but then there's symphonic kind of like strings. It's probably and over top of it. It's beautiful. It's kind of like Aphex Twin and some of his stuff, but it is very intensely quick and kind of frenetic, but it's at the same time beautiful and relaxing.
I need to write that down. What's it called?
Port Rhombus by Square Pusher. It's really old. It's like back when I was in high school or something. But I remember hearing that record, and I still to this day I love that song. But yeah, that's kind of what I have this, you know, problem where I can't help but think of music in relation to images. So
I mean, I think I subconsciously do it as well. It's just more recent. It feels like it's left my studio practice.
Yeah.
You know, like I mean, I think years of listening to music and being so obsessed with it. Maybe it's coming out now, like over absorbing it for so many years. Right.
Yeah. So you had this big move, and you're getting situated, but do you have things on the horizon? Do you have anything coming up that you're working towards?
Yes, I have a show at Magma Gallery in September. It's in Italy. It's a duo show with Youngplace. He's a graffiti artist. I mean, I shouldn't say that. He does these shaped. I don't know his work very well, but I know he was a graffiti artist back in the day, and now he does more of these shaped graphic canvases. So yeah, we have a show together, and then I think I just found out doing Art Toronto in Canada, and working on a few other little projects, but they're more commission based at the moment. Yeah. Can we,
real quick, before I mercifully let you go, can we sing the praises of Toronto? What a great town.
Oh, it is. It's great. I mean, it's changed a lot.
Well, I only know the recent. I only started going. I went to Niagara Falls back when I was like a little kid, but I went recently a couple times. I love it. The food's great. It's like diverse.
The food is great. The food is incredible. Yeah. I just think that the city took a turn a little bit with the pandemic, and the housing market's kind of insane.
I haven't been there since then.
Yeah, like it's, I don't know, it's a little unfortunate. Like the pandemic, I think a lot of small businesses unfortunately closed, restaurants, and there's a lot of condos going up, and it's great. It is a great city. Hopefully it will turn around.
That sounds familiar though. New York had a lot of small businesses close, but they'll come back.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's a great city. I'm excited to go back and see what happens at some point. Just for a visit, though.
Right.
I think I'm permanently here.
Yeah. just a drive-by.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for you. That sounds like a great move, and it must be invigorating to sort of make new work in a new country and a whole new.
Yeah, I mean also why I was not I was a little worried about talking, because I think I've been out of the studio for 2.5 months. This is the longest I've ever not painted for. And I was kind of worried about talking about my work, because I kind of was in this what is my work? Right? I don't even remember. It's been so long. I'm excited to see if what happens. It could completely, change in some ways. I'm excited.
Just like the world completely changed. Yeah. We never know what's going to happen, right? But fortunately for you, I never really talk about too much art in this thing. It's more of artists being able to talk about their life, which they never get a chance to do, It's always about the art, so why not talk about, electronic music and Lisbon. But yeah, thanks so much. It was great to talk to you.
Thank you.
And people can check out your work. You have a website and you have Instagram. Yes,
website www.kathrynmacnaughton.com.
I love that you added the www. That's for all the parents out there. HTTP.
HTTP. And my Instagram is Kathryn Mac.
Do you go by Kathryn, or do you have a nickname, or is that?
It's
always
Kathryn. I think. Yeah.
I like Kathryn more than a Katie. Oh shit! I just offended every Katie. Katie, I like Katie. Like Katie, I like your name too. I just like Kathryn.
I have so many friends named Katie. So many.
Oh, great! Now they all hate me.
Yeah. I'm not saying anything.
I don't hate that name at all. Kim. Now Kim's a name I can't stand. No, I'm just kidding. Brian is really the worst name. But yeah, they should check out your. I mean, you have a pretty good feed of you keep it pretty active.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot. Yeah. I look forward to seeing your work again in person. It's been a little while, but to see your work in person again, hopefully in New York sometime soon.
I know. Hopefully.
Maybe I'll be able to visit Europe at some point too.
You better, yeah. If you come to Lisbon, You must reach
We
out.
were close. We'll do it at some point. It's on the map. I'm a big soccer fan, and I want to go to Porto. Like, I want to go see a game.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. Good talking.
Sound and Vision is recorded, edited, and produced by myself, Brian Alfred. You can find out more by checking out the website, soundandvisionpodcast.com. Find images on Instagram, at Sound and Vision Podcast. Many thanks to Brigitte for the intro-outro music, Michael Lovett for the introduction, and Kathryn for taking the time out to speak. Thanks to Golden Artist Colors and Fulcrum Coffee for their sponsorship and making it happen in the studio for me. Many more episodes coming up, some good stuff, so thank you as always. If you can, drop by iTunes, leave a rating and review. It helps the podcast, and spread the word. Thank you.